Welcome back. I'm Michael Ball, and this is America's Commercial Real Estate Show. This segment is brought to you by Valuate Online Investment Analysis. Visit getvaluate.com. Today we're talking about senior housing. My guest is Beth Mace. She's Chief Economist with NIC. And Beth, before the break, I mentioned that it seems like a lot of people are interested in technology. Technology is really changing everything. Seems to be changing really fast. And, I'm seeing a lot of older product in senior housing. We're seeing a lot of new supply, as you mentioned. But if technology is changing really rapidly, what's that mean when we get this boom? You said in 6 or more years, are some of these properties going to be maybe a little out of date?
Yeah, I think that we're going to see a pretty significant impact of technology in the senior housing and care sector eventually. It's starting to emerge. It's not all here yet. And I think we're going to see a significant impact of technology in terms of helping us with labor because of the shortages that we were talking about earlier. And in my view, from an operations perspective, we're starting to see lead generation being delivered over the Internet. Increasingly, IT systems and big data are allowing seniors management to observe real-time changes in the day-to-day performance and operating systems. We're starting to see more remote monitoring of residents. And all of that is starting to generate, I think, staff efficiencies and make labor even more productive than what it had been. From a health and wellness perspective, we have telehealth and virtual care systems, and they have the potential, I think, to reduce overall healthcare costs and improve healthcare coverage. Smartphones and appliances, remote sensors, handheld devices with medical applications. Robots, I think, are going to be really important as we go forward. We see advertisements out for like robots that will sort of take an avatar type approach and remind people of when it's time to take their medicines or maybe it's time to stand up and stretch. So I think you're going to see technology from an operations perspective and from a health perspective and from just a socialization perspective really move into the sector. There's a group called Aging 2.0 that does nothing but looks at technology as it relates to senior housing, or seniors in general, not senior housing, but seniors in general. MIT has something called the MIT Aging Lab that is doing research on how technology can help as people age. So there's lots of different groups around the country that are really focusing in on technology and its impact on seniors.
Yeah, that's good to hear because, it seems like sometimes the aging, we don't pay them enough respect. We don't give them enough due. I mean, these are great people, and just because they're getting up in age doesn't mean we don't need to take care of them. And like I said in the previous segment, my mother went into a place, and I thought it was pretty high-end. It was very nice. It was brand new. And I didn't see a lot of technology related to security and to health. So it'd be good to see more of that coming online. So Beth, let's talk about existing operators. What are some tips for operators that might help them become more efficient?
Well, I think, as I mentioned, I think one of the biggest challenges really is going to be in the labor area. So, there's a quote that I use sometimes from Richard Branson, who was the founder of the Virgin Group. He said, train people well enough so that they can leave, but treat them well enough so they don't want to.
I like it.
So I think increasingly we're seeing operators, create and implement innovative approaches to both recruit and retain employees, because that is going to be a challenge. You're going to see more educational programs, benefit packages, I think different types of integrative support and camaraderie systems around the solutions that operators can implement as well. And, relationships are really important. And if you think about seniors housing, it's really a people versus people, or people not versus, but people helping people. So it includes the relationships between the staff and the residents and the relationships among the staff. And if you create an environment that's, a pleasing place to work, you're going to be able to help retain that very important critical component of your staffing.
Yeah, I think that's a great tip, and again, I've been seeing it firsthand recently. And the people where my mother is are wonderful. They're great, and they really, you might have a nice real estate around you, but it's the people that really make the difference. At the end of the day, it's really a business, and people are the front line of that business, right?
Yeah, and I would add, I think it's really important, especially in this environment, that operators create staff redundancy so that you can mitigate any kind of single source of failure in the operation. So, for example, I see some operators that are creating assisted executive director programs. So they're trying to train the next executive director. The executive director generally is sort of the CEO of the property, and they're looking at the operations of the property from basically soup to nuts in terms of everything related to seniors, related to that property. So I think you need to create backups in case that executive director leaves or in case there's some type of, an issue with that executive director. So I think the really smart operators are recognizing that and trying to create staff redundancy where they can.
Yeah, that's a good point. And earlier you mentioned a lot of different technology. So for the average operator today, when they're looking at all the potential technology that's out there, whether it's in health or it's in security or it's in marketing, where would you suggest they might want to look the first couple places of technology?
Well, probably marketing. I think that advertising, certainly on the internet, would be really important. Typically, the decision maker for seniors housing is the adult child and actually the adult daughter, usually. And that person is usually, searching for a place for their mom, and going on the internet is much more likely to be the solution of how they go about doing that than would have been in the past. So I'd say to make sure you have a really good internet presence in terms of marketing. And then in terms of the operations, increasingly, big data is the name of the game. Try to keep track of the activity going on with your staff in terms of timing that they're spending with the residents or, just the general operations of the property.
Okay. And Beth, you'd mentioned in the previous segment about your annual conference coming up in Chicago, September 26th and 28th. Do you have to be a member to go? Can someone go that's interested in the sector?
Absolutely. So NIC is a 501c3. It's not a trade association, so we don't have memberships per se. So this is an event that's open up to pretty much anyone that wants to come, and you would just need to register to come, pay and register. And you can get that information by just going to www.nic.org.
Okay, and that's NIC.org. So what other resources are at your website or out there in general that you could leave our listeners with?
Well, we have, if you go to our website, again, www.nic.org, we have something that we call our investor guide, and it gets updated every other year. So last year it was updated, and it will get updated again in 2018. And it's a really good primer of the sector. So if you're new to the sector, it tells you about the size of the sector. It tells you the nuances of the independent living versus assisted living, who the players are, what the opportunities are. It's a really good source of information. It's certainly the best that I know of in the sector, especially for someone new into the industry.
Is there a charge for that guide?
No, the executive summary is free, and then there's a nominal fee for the rest of it.
Okay, and we'll put a link to the executive summary on our website at CREshow.com, and then look for this show either in audio or video form. So, Beth, thanks so much for joining us. As usual, great information. You're out there speaking around the country. Thanks for taking the time to be on America's Commercial Real Estate Show.
You're very welcome. It's been my pleasure. Thank you for inviting me.
Yeah, and we look forward to seeing you in Chicago, Beth. And then also, if you're out there listening or watching, look for us in Chicago. Say hello. We hope to see you there. And stay tuned. We're going to have some more on senior housing. We're going to talk a little bit about cap rates. We're going to talk a little more about development. And we're going to talk a little bit about site selection that you don't want to miss. Stay with us. I'm Michael Bull. This is America's Commercial Real Estate Show.